Okay. Um, Thanks for clicking on our PowerPoint. This is the Galaxy Zoo Clump Scout. I'm Celeste.
I'm Mia.
I'm Angeline.
I'm Raymond.
So some vocab before we start. Clumps are big, bright regions in galaxies where stars are being formed more quickly than usual. The bulge are round structures made primarily of old stars' gas and dust. And unusual clumps are clumps that are extra bright or look unlike other clumps.
So the scientific goals of this project is to identify all the clumps in the Sloan Digital Sky Survey and learn more about clumps. Throughout this project, the astronomers are also trying to figure out questions like why did clumps form in the first place and what happened to make them stop. Since there are hundreds of thousands of galaxy images in the SDSS, how the crowdsourcing works in this project is that people help the astronomers to mark the clumps of stars and find unusual clumps in the images. Next one, please.
So for the process of our project, we looked at a bunch of different images and we identified the bulge and clumps of stars and unusual clumps. And the bulge was easy to see in pretty much all of the pictures, but some of the pictures weren't as clear, so it made it harder to see the clumps. And then some images didn't have clumps at all. The image on the right is like, it shows the bulge, but there's no like clumps around it. Overall, it was pretty easy to identify all of the things. The instructions were clear and they had lots of examples like showing you what it was supposed to look like.
Okay, for the results of the project, we learned how to identify the bulge and clump of stars. The bulge is almost always really easy to point out because it's in the center and is usually a bright arrow or bright yellow. The red arrows are pointing to the bulge in the images below. We were surprised that it was sometimes hard to see clumps of stars because we expected it to be brighter in the pictures. On the right, the blue arrows are pointing to clumps. And we saw that about 60% of the galaxies had at least one clump of stars in the images we saw. We learned and saw the three types of galaxies, spiral, elliptical, and irregular. We saw that it was easiest to point out clumps in spiral galaxies. This makes sense because there's a lot of active star formation in spiral galaxies.
For me, I like the fact that we're doing a real project that can help someone who are in the astronomy industry and accelerate the process of the research. Meanwhile, during the process of finding clumps and bulge, I was able to see many different images of the galaxies, which I have never done in my life before. As Zooniverse states in its own website, anyone can be a researcher regardless of one's background or how much does he or she knows about the astronomy. Therefore, this project is open to everyone who has passions about astronomy. My favorite part of this project is that it allows me to work with other experts to make discoveries together. Since I have lots of passion and love for this project, I do not suggest changing any elements of the project.
That is it. Thank you for
Thank
watching this
you.
recording. Yeah.